What's going on, everybody? Welcome to TRAK 21, the peak, the return of the kid. Welcome in, everybody. I'm the Rook, your host, joined by my other host, the kid, the analyst, and the medical guy. We got the entire crew today. Note the bottom of the analyst is a little notes there, hated by T-Law, #analyst. But yeah, we are here once again every Wednesday, shattering the script, and we're excited to have the full crew on for this episode. The kid, I want to start with you, brother. How you doing? It's been a long time coming. I'm excited. You've been grinding. You've been on the move, making some sales. The gross. How is it going?
It's going good, guys. And I also want to say thank you to the analyst and the med guy for holding it down while I was gone. I do want to say that a wolf is only as strong as his pack. And I would just want to say thank you guys for holding it down while the man was trying to get his gross. And I'm excited to be back, and I missed you guys, and I'm ready to rock and roll today.
Let's get it. Hell yeah. Well, welcome back, everybody. Let's get started. We'll go right into the Shatter the Script right after I announce my team. The World Series champs, Texas Rangers, defeat the Arizona Diamondbacks 4-1. The city of Dallas has broken the streak, broken the curse. Was the Rangers the curse in the first place? No, it's still Rowdy. It's still Jerry Jones. It's still Jimmy Johnson being in the Ring of Honor. But congratulations to the Texas Rangers repping you guys today. It was awesome watching. It was easy and it was awesome. Non-stressful. I'm glad it was over quick. But moving on into Shatter the Script, we've got James Jones on speak talking about Dak Prescott and the Philadelphia Eagles Cowboys matchup. And here we go. In just one moment.
Change. You know, this is the Dak Prescott that we've seen in this league. We've seen Dak Prescott in big-time games not show up. We've seen Dak Prescott in big-time games show up. We've seen Dak Prescott with the ball in his hands at the end of games, and we've seen Dak Prescott not make the play at the end of the games to win the game. That's what happened in this game. I'm not surprised that Dak Prescott goes out there and throws the ball all over the yard and has a really good game. Like, Dak Prescott is a good quarterback in this league. So none of that stuff surprised me. I knew it would come down to the quarterback with the ball in his hands last, and Dak did not make that football play. So with that being said, though, Dak Prescott, and it ain't close, was the best player on the football field, on both teams in that game. His team did not get the W, but he was clearly the best player on the football field, and you cannot argue that. The way Dak Prescott played, made plays with his legs, got outside the pocket, made plays with his arms, in the pocket, throwing the ball down the football field. If we would have told you Dak Prescott would have had 375 yards, 74 yards passing, 3 touchdowns, and 0 picks, y'all would have thought that the Cowboys won the game big. He was the best player on the football field. Clearly, Slim. Clearly.
See, look, he don't like that. I
mean,
all right. Well, Shatter the Script. That was James Jones there. I'll give my first quick comments on that, and then I'll dish it over to the kid. I thought he was spot on both parts. You know, he had a little fair criticism on Dak to begin it, and then he had fair praises for Dak following that. I didn't think it was going to lead up to him saying that he was by far the best player on the field, but we'll get into the Dak on Track segment. I'll expand on it, but I think Dak Prescott played an outstanding game. I like what him and David Hellman have done on that show, kind of really shattering the script on their own with, Cowboys players and Cowboys media in general. So I like the words from James Jones there, and I'm glad someone up there, I know they're parading the eagle and there as if it's their Super Bowl. But yeah, shout out to James Jones. Hunter, what did you think about that?
Yeah, I'm going to keep it short too because I don't want to expand too much on it because of, our other segments. But I can agree that for that game, he was definitely the best player on the field, making big plays, making big throws. Shout out to Jake Ferguson, CeeDee Lamb, and Tyler Smith as well, especially that left side in line with Tyron as well. Dominating performances by all those guys. And, like I said, I don't want to expand too much on it, but those are my comments for now.
Yep. And Cuzzo?
Yeah, I agree with both of y'all, man. I mean, it was pretty obvious that, Dak Prescott was the best player on the field just due to the fact that if you look at the rest of the offense, there was nothing for the Cowboys. And really the only reason they were in that game is because, Dak made plays everywhere. And unfortunately it came down, and like we'll talk about later on the podcast, but unfortunately, it came down to like a couple of plays that go an inch or two the other way, and it's a different ball game. So I agree with y'all. It was good to see him finally get a little bit of praise, even though the Cowboys lost, because normally when they lose, the vultures come out and go right for the quarterback, but this time they really didn't have too much to say about him. So I agree with what y'all are saying.
Yeah. The analyst?
I think just to follow up with what hasn't been said is this is the first time when I've logged on to Twitter and Instagram or whatever, wherever you get your football takes, that I've actually seen some praise for Dak. And, a lot of the hate and stuff go away of like I saw one that was like, people are elevating his quote unquote bad games to a certain extent, but nobody's talking about him like we've always said when he does good, and he played very well against the Eagles. And, it's just like Jacob said, it's a game of inches, and they lost that game by literal inches. I mean, get more into it when we start talking about the game, but I was very surprised with Dak, and I think there's, the shadow of the 49ers loss has kind of brightened now after playing against the Eagles that way. I mean, we'll get into it later, but I was very impressed with Dak, and I'm excited to see the Cowboys in these next couple games. So a lot to build off of.
Absolutely. Yep, and that is Shatter the Script. We're going to move on. We're getting to the Cowboys, obviously, later, recapping the Philadelphia and Eagles game right after the recap and predictions per usual. So Week 9 NFL recap. We're going to start out with a game. Let's see. We've got the Germany game, Chiefs versus the Dolphins. Chiefs defeat the Dolphins 21-14. Here's what I have on this game. I think Tua folded in the final drive of this game. The underthrow or miscommunication, whatever you want to call it, to Cedric Wilson, it just looked brutal. Even if it was like supposed to be a route shortened, it was just lofted in the air as if it looked a lot like that, like it slipped out of his hand type of a throw, but it didn't. So it looked more awful than it should have. It just looked poor. And then obviously the fumble on the shotgun snap following that, which calculated as a sack, and that was the end of the ball game. But yeah, to me with the Chiefs though, I think their defense is louder than their offense. I think their defense outplays their offense in multiple games this season. And Kelsey, the Swift effect continues to struggle when Swift is not there and not at the games with Mahomes' wife. So Miami has not beat a winning team in over a year, and that's very concerning, not only for like a Mike McDaniel as head coach, but, for the Tua non-narrative or whatever you want to call it. I just think that Miami has a lot to prove. Yes, they probably will be a playoff team, but I just don't see them doing a lot of damage. Outstanding defensive ball game by the Chiefs, shutting down the Dolphins. I really thought Tyreek Hill was going to have a big breakout game against his former team with all that smack talk that he was saying in the offseason. But nonetheless, Chiefs get the dub. But yeah, we'll move on to the kid. What you got on the CJ Stroud boy game?
Yeah, so for my recap, I got the bad boy versus the Christian. Convicts versus Christians. Everything that Americans love about football. CJ Stroud, whose first name almost resembles JC, as in Jesus Christ, played his best game of his young NFL career. He is a lock for Rookie of the Year, and the guy who was drafted ahead of him struggled on Sunday against the Colts, where Kenny Moore of the defense of the Colts had more touchdowns than the Panthers' offensive players. 2 pick sixes, didn't look well. Texans definitely found their starting quarterback for the future. Hopefully he could take over City of Houston. We saw what happened last time when they found a guy like that, But luckily he's a Christian man, so, good things can happen. Baker Mayfield's late go-ahead drive was not good enough, while CJ Stroud just marched down the field and ended the game. I got some stats that happened. We got CJ Stroud, 30 of 42, 470, 5 touchdowns, rookie records. Woke Boy, 10 catches, 130, 1 touchdown. And then Noah Brownstains had 6 catches, 153, and 1 touchdown. And it was a pretty much, every time the Texans play at like noon, you're kind of like, like you might be a little hungover. You might be kind of like, I don't really want to, Cowboys play later. But it was a pretty interesting game, and it was good to see that a lot of people are starting to see the value of CJ Stroud because he is a playmaker. Tank Dell, who we all wanted the Cowboys to get, very good player, and they'll be a problem in the next few years. They're still kind of learning, but they're gonna have to. That division in the next couple years is gonna be tough with T. Law, Will Levis, and who the fuck knows? It might be Caleb Williams and the Falcons. We don't know, but we'll see.
Right.
And that is my recap.
All right. And Cuzzo, the medical guy, what you got on your game?
So I have the Sunday night football game, Bengals versus Bills. Bengals win this 24-18. Just some of the notes I have is that the game started off hot. That both teams scored really quick. And then, the Bengals got the ball back and scored again. So it kind of looked like it was going to be a shootout. But just some of the notes I have is that it seems like Joe Burrow is back as well as the Bengals. He had just a hell of a game. I think he was 31 for 44, 350 plus yards and a few TDs and whatnot. So it looks like he's back. Definitely can tell kind of when, he's moving around the pocket. He's able to scramble out and do some different things with his legs that we weren't seeing in the beginning of the year. Also, another big contributor to this game was T. Higgins. He had a pretty good bounce back game coming off those rib fractures and whatnot, and coming back from injury and showing just, how, good this offense can be. I mean, they have, multiple weapons, at least 3 decent weapons at receiving. They've got Joe Mixon as well as Joe Burrow. So it looks like when they get rolling, they can be really good. And then kind of to the Bills, like I said, it started off hot. It looked like it was going to be a big shootout. But then it's like the Bills offense just went stagnant. It looked like they kind of lost their identity. And Josh Allen turned the ball over. But even before he turned the ball over, it just looked like they kind of just veered away from what was working. And I watched a video, I think it was last week on the Bills. It seems like their offense seems to be obviously Josh Allen playing Superman ball, but at the same time, Stephon Diggs playing Superman receiver. And it's like, hey, Stephon Diggs goes and runs some crazy route and has to make a huge play. And so it just seems like their offense just can get stagnant real quick. And then another one, I know it wasn't Josh Allen this time, but Dalton Kincaid had a terrible fumble when it looked like they were going to make a comeback. And those are just kind of the 2 sore spots for Buffalo's offense right there. Is, Josh Allen had a bad turnover, and then Dalton Kincaid's fumble was brutal. And so that just kind of put the nail in the coffin right there. That's kind of what I have for that Sunday night football game. I know the score is 24-18, but it really seemed like a bigger gap than that. So
Joe
Bengals are
Shiesty
back.
is back.
mm-hmm.
Dude.
The Analyst, Monday Night Football, Chargers versus Jets.
All right. Well, I've got the Chargers and Jets. Essentially, I watched this game, so you didn't have to yesterday.
Thank you, Ryan.
You're welcome. The Chargers, the ending score is 27-6. That's probably about right. If you watched any of this game, not a whole lot of great offense. It really, the offense came off of the turnovers from the Chargers defense. So I've kind of nitpicked the Chargers early on in the year, and their defense looked really good. But that also, I think, has more to say about how the Jets' offense looked in this game. Zach Wilson, I think, had 4 fumbles. Yeah, he had 3 fumbles, lost 2 of them. Garrett Wilson had 1 fumble and lost that one as well. And then the other big thing in this game was the amount of sacks that the Los Angeles Chargers had. So they had 8 total sacks. Bosa had 2.5. Khalil Mack had 2. And then I think their second-round draft pick, his name's Tuli Tuipulotu, I think is how you say it. He had 2 sacks as well, but a team totaled for 8, and they were all over Zach Wilson. Nothing really else to say other than the big play that came out of this game was an ill-advised throw by Justin Herbert to the corner, and Keenan Allen made a heck of a catch. I mean,
Yeah.
I was watching it live when he threw that ball. I was like, oh, that's way out of bounds. That's incomplete. And Keenan Allen had basically his back towards the ball, turned, caught that thing one-handed, and on the way down just snagged it and brought it in together right at the last hit. Yeah, there's a good picture of it.
If you're
I mean,
watching
it was unbelievable. So that was actually, I'm pretty sure that was on 3rd down as well. It kept the drive alive for the Chargers, and they ended up scoring some points off of it. But if you're a Jets fan, it makes you wonder what your team would look like with Aaron Rodgers. I mean, their offensive line is basically a shuffle deck right now. I think they said on the broadcast that they've had 8 or 9 different starting lineups or different combinations going on there. But at this point, I don't understand why the Jets don't, give the ball more to Breece Hall, or just tote the rock down the field with Breece Hall and then force feed Garrett Wilson. I think they tried to, but Zach Wilson just holds on to the ball too long for what the Jets are. So ending score on this one was, again, 27-6 Chargers. That score was definitely inflated. The Chargers did not play incredible. It's just the Jets were giving them the ball on really bad field position. So 27-6 Chargers.
I believe Zach Wilson was sacked 8 times that game.
Yeah, that's what I said. He had 8 total. The Chargers had 8 sacks. It's crazy.
I'm very glad that Ryan got that game, because if I had to say that second round rookie's name, we would have been here all day.
Yeah, I was going to ask you to say that 3 times fast.
Yeah.
I think it's Tuipulotu.
Brother would have sounded like radio.
Tootsie Roll Pelosi. Tootsie Roll Pelosi.
What is it?
Oh.
Tua? Tua
Yeah.
all over?
Hunter, you don't have to answer this, but who's the offensive coordinator for the Washington Commanders?
Oh,
Eric Bieniemy.
Let's go!
Oh, let's go.
Yeah.
Can you use the word in a sentence?
Yes.
Origin.
Eric Bieniemy is black.
Yes, that's correct. He is.
You ruined Cut him off.
Guys.
All right, go ahead.
You could have said he was the offensive coordinator for the Commanders. Or you just had to go to his. Nice.
But every time people mention him, they talk about how he's black. I was just doing everybody a favor. I was just saying what
that
he
is
was.
true. Every time a white coach was hired, they do say that he was blackballed.
Guys, he's just shattering the script. Calm down.
He was Eric Bieniemy was the first black coach to be an offensive coordinator whose name was Eric.
Exactly. Oh, don't worry, guys. He's 50% Mexican. But here we go. Week 10 predictions. We're going to start off with our Sunday night football game. The Las Vegas Raiders versus the Jets, otherwise known as Terminal Cancer for Sunday night football. So we have, it's a -1. It's a -1.5 point spread for the New York Jets. My predictions on this game, and it's going to be an ugly one, boys. But I actually have the Jets pulling this one out 22-20. I think they win this game purely off of their defense. And to Ryan's point, Breece Hall's production. Zach Wilson has played fairly well under the lights. I know he got sacked 8 times in that Chargers game, but he showed out against the Chiefs earlier in the season. So you never know what kind of Zach Wilson you're going to get. Usually you get a bad one and then you get a good one. So maybe it's time for him to play like a good Zach Wilson. So, and then the honeymoon game for the Raiders has concluded. We stand behind Antonio Pierce. This is awesome. Run through a brick wall. It's ended. It's back to reality. But I do think Tay will get a lot more touches. But I've got the Jets 22, the Raiders 20 in a shit bowl of a game. The kid, what do you got on this Sunday night football projection?
Jets win 24-13.
Thank you.
That's all I got. That's all I really got.
Medical guy.
For fantasy purpose, I hope both of all the points go to Devontae Adams. But I have
good luck.
I just can't move past this being a high-scoring game. I'm going with 14-10 Las Vegas Raiders, and I need both of those touchdowns to go to Devontae Adams.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah, good luck.
Thank you. Thank you.
The analyst.
Oh man, I don't even want to pick. After watching the Jets yesterday and knowing what Max Crosby is, I'm gonna go 17-14 Raiders.
Raiders. There we go. Sunday Night Football brought to you by Roger Goodell. Thanks, Roger.
How does this not get flexed?
I was about to say there's this thing called a flex. Maybe we should try that out. But
you could honestly just cancel this game, and I don't think
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
This game is canceled.
It's like everybody's like, oh yeah, it's like let me watch the Jets versus Raiders before I go back to my 9-to-5 job on Monday. That's just really what I want to do.
It's awesome. Yeah, I'd rather eat.
I have to. Pork. Hey, boss, I got to call in this morning. I'm blind from last night's piece of shit game that was on Sunday Night Football.
Hey, I need a mental health day. I literally cannot see because of the atrocity that I witnessed for 3 hours on Sunday night. I should have been reading my Bible, but yeah. So we've got the the Baltimore game. Ravens versus Browns.
Careful, Joe.
Minus Ravens versus Browns. Not going to describe what this game could be, but it's minus 6.5 spread for Baltimore. The kid, what do you got us predicting this game at noon on Sunday?
So, guys, I got the Browns versus Ravens, like you just said. It's LaGreedy versus Houston's most wanted matchup for the first time. LaGreedy and Deshaun Watson. The Browns arguably have probably the best defense in the NFL, but the LaGreedy Baltimore Ravens have arguably the best team in the NFL. Lamar Jackson has a chance to be MVP again, especially if the Ravens finish with the 1 seed. Watson hasn't been himself since the scandal, and I don't see the Ravens kind of slowing down. 27-17, LaGreedy wins this game.
All right. That's a big game for the Ravens and the Browns, a divisional game. I think they're already 2 or 3 wins in the division already. All right. Yeah. So we got the next noon game coming off the bye weeks. The 49ers versus the Jaguars got a negative 3.0 spread, favored on the San Francisco 49ers. I think the 49ers coming off that 3-game losing streak, plus the bye week, they're going to be back to full strength with the return of Taysom Hill. Deebo Samuel. So the Jaguars will have to find ways to get, the wide receivers involved. Christian Kirk was really good against man coverage. Calvin Ridley's going to have to show out. You're not going to beat the 49ers when your best player is only going to get 1 or 2 touches a game. And you're going to have to find ways to win with those wide receivers, like I mentioned earlier, because ETN probably won't produce as he has in the past versus this, 49ers front, which now has Chase Young, Bosa, Randy Gregory. If you're a Jaguars fan, you're praying that Randy Gregory holds your offensive lineman like a dumbass in a crucial spot, like he did with the Cowboys back in 2021. Just a very undisciplined player. Hopefully he smoked a joint before the game. But I'll take Trevor Lawrence over Brock Purdy. However, that's by far. But however, I am taking the 49ers team over the Jags, but I think it's going to be a close one. I've got the 49ers 30, Jaguars 27. I think the Jaguars played well enough to win this game, but I think the 49ers come out on top with a little bit of favorable calls from the refs. We might see a couple of clips thrown around on Twitter. So we will see. What's so funny?
I just look at Cuzzo's screen, bro, and it's just I don't know. I just wasn't expecting that.
Scared him.
But scared the fuck out of me too.
The Niners. I thought you were about to say the Jags would beat the Niners. I was like, I don't think that's gonna happen, but I think the Niners. I agree with your take. I think the Niners kind of get back. So.
Yeah, I got to tell me what the hell was so funny after that. But
sorry, my wife walked in. She didn't know I was recording a podcast. She's been sick, so she was in the living room, and I guess was coming in here to check on me. And she walked in like while this is going on and while you were talking. So
Bring her back in. All right. So yeah, the next game we'll go with the medical guy, I believe, with the Lions and Chargers at 3:05.
yeah, so I checked on ESPN and the spread was -2.5 Detroit, and I'm gonna have to go with that. Oh yeah, -2 Detroit. I'm gonna have to go. I think the Lions cover that. I think it's gonna be 24-17 Lions. I think Goff and his receivers have a big game. I don't think that defense repeats what it just did, and it's also playing a much better team. And then I think the Chargers are banged up on offense, especially kind of on that O-line and then receivers, because they basically have Keenan Allen and Austin Eckler, even though those are very good weapons. I think it's really easy to just contain those two rather than what they had at the beginning of the year. And I think big reason I believe they win this by more than 2.5 is I think it's going to be a little, not revenge game, but revenge from getting beat so bad by Baltimore that they're going to come off this bye week, guns blazing and really trying to win this game. That's kind of all I have on that. I have Lions 24, Chargers 17.
All right. And Ryan wrapping us up.
Yeah, so I have the Monday night football game, the Broncos and Bills. This is probably another game that people aren't going to care too much to watch, mainly because Russ, Bus, Wilson will be on the field. And the Bills are kind of like bad. I'm kind of starting to put them in the bad group. I know that
weird.
Might be a hot take, but I honestly, the Bills, the last time I checked the spread was 7.5 to Buffalo. I honestly would bet against that. I would take the 7.5 to the Broncos. They just played the Chiefs pretty well, and the Bills just can't seem to figure it out. So
interesting.
I still think the Bills win, but I don't think it's by 7.5. I'm gonna go 21-17 Bills.
21-17 Bills.
Does
Russell Wilson? Does Russ cook? 12
No,
of
he
19.
continues his 150 yards and 3 touchdowns. Where he throws he's 11 of, I think the perfect match for this game is he's 18 of 23, 176 yards, 2 touchdowns and an interception. That's a Russell Wilson game right there.
Yeah. No,
It's
I would
completions,
agree.
no yards, 2 touchdowns on slant routes,
Yeah.
and then a god-awful interception that he tried to attempt to throw over the middle.
Yeah, and we see on Twitter from PFF or somebody, they'll post his completion percentage and touchdown to interception ratio as if it means shit, and say that he's cooking, but it's whatever. But yeah, who I want to see have a big game in that one too is Javonte Williams. He had a good last 2 games, so hopefully he continues it for a third time.
Man, you just want that because you just got him in fantasy. Come on.
That's correct. That's exactly why. That's exactly why.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see Devontae Adams and Javonte Williams. Man, that's who I'm really excited.
Man, I really want to watch them do good. I really do. Even though
who I really want to get a lot of reps at quarterback this week? Taysom Hill. I don't know why, but I really need some reps for him.
Just feeling it. Yeah, you're just feeling it.
I just think that the New Orleans Saints need to go a different route. They should definitely let Taysom Hill play quarterback and tight end this week about 100% of snaps.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly my logic. All right. Well, we will now move into our segment, which we covered primarily, and we've all been waiting for, is the Tracking the Boys segment. Recapping the Cowboys-Eagles game, then discussing the Cowboys versus the Giants game in Week 10. Obviously, the Eagles win this game 28-23. It was a very highly entertaining game, to say the least. That's what I was proud of once the game had concluded. I was not really, I was kind of upset, but at the same time, I was sitting there going, damn, that was a good game. We played them well. And honestly, it was exactly what I predicted in the previous pod. I was 1 point off on the score prediction, but my main, projection was that we're going to play them well, but we're just not ready to beat them. yet, or we need a little bit more time, get, Leighton Vander Esch back in the mix at linebacker, whatever it may be. I feel like it wasn't the time. And so maybe week 14, when we play at home, when we're much better at home by far, we could snag a dub and possibly be 10-3 at that time. But yeah, let's start with our offensive analysis here. And I want to give the kid the first go at it here. And now we'll move to the medical guy, the analyst, and I'll close this out with the offensive analysis. But what did you see? Positive signs from the offense? I know Dak Prescott, had a chunk of yards throughout this game. Pollard didn't get as many touches as we kind of expected it. Ferguson was highly productive. I think you wanted to speak on Ferguson specifically. But what do you have on the offense for this game?
Some good and bad points of the offense. I'll start with the bad, just get it out the way. Well, first of all, overall, good game for Dallas against a good team. Eagles are arguably also a top 2, top 3 team in this league, maybe behind Baltimore. Terrence Steele is a weak point of the offensive line, but the thing is that, man, he also has the toughest matchup every single week that he plays. He's on the right side, he's going against people like Hassan Reddick, and he's going against Bosa. He's always getting these.
The other Bosa.
Yeah, so he always has the toughest matchups. And, the Cowboys are going to have to start scheming better because even though he is a weak point, and then also, like most guys, like even like Parsons likes to move around, but like the Bosas and all those guys, they like to stay on one side, Max Crosby. With offense too, we talked about in the summer with Jake Ferguson, and I talked about, Jake Ferguson, if he starts cooking, then this offense is going to get a lot better. And what we've seen over the last 3 weeks is that it's the defense is still playing well, but it's more like the offense is really kind of starting to pick it up each and every week. And even though they only put up 23 points, it easily could have been 30. Like y'all mentioned, it's a game of inches, and then getting stopped at the, half-yard line, or whatever you want to call it. Jake Ferguson, looking at that chart right there, he is baby Kelsey is what we called him.
That's
and
right.
also, I don't want to take all the points for y'all. One last thing, I will say that the Tyler Smith pick looks better and better every single week, and it's just kind of another. It's kind of another one of those picks where the Cowboys, hit it on the nail, and we don't know about it, or we don't seem to realize it until like we actually see them play. Because everyone's like, "Why are we Tyler Smith? Like, who the hell is Tyler Smith?" Or the Mozzie one hasn't really worked out yet, but give it time. But Tyler Smith is going to be here for a long time, and he's definitely shown you would think he's a veteran the way he plays. And overall, good job, Cowboys. Even though they lost, you should smoke everybody next 4 games. Go back to the drawing board and move on forward, boys.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for bringing up, Jake Ferguson. And, we talked about him. Credit to me and you. You led the charge on it earlier in the season during the preseason, saying that, he could be the difference maker in this offense. And like that chart we just showed, he's proven to be not only a very productive player, but a very productive presence in the offense as well, where people have to keep an eye on him. And hopefully that opens up some deep avenues for the wide receivers, specifically for CeeDee Lamb and, Brandon Cooks whenever we start to actually utilize him. But the medical guy, what did you have offensively on this game?
Yeah, so my good parts of the offense, I have obviously Dak, obviously CD, obviously Ferguson. And I think Hunter kind of covered that with Ferguson. I mean, he's been, just kind of lights out, and how, Hunter talked about Tyler Smith being a good pick and it really looking like that. I think it makes our second round pick, Schoonmaker, look like a very bad pick because it shows that,
Can you please say that for the analysts in the back?
Yeah,
we've been saying that since June.
Yeah, I'll repeat it. It makes our second pick, Schoonmaker. Not that he's a bad player, but that it was kind of a waste of a pick. Because like we've talked about, Ferguson showed the ability to be a number one tight end. And the fact that we drafted a guy in the second round when there was tons of people available that we could have needed more to get utilized. And I think he has 2 catches for 2 yards this year, or something crazy. He has more than that, but for a while there, he had like 2 catches for 2 yards. But he doesn't have much. And for that to be your second round pick, that's tough. But yeah, the good parts were Dak, CD, Ferg. Obviously, like Hunter mentioned, Tyler Smith. I honestly thought majority of the O-line did fine outside of one spot. And so that'll kind of go into my next point is the bad. And I thought the bad was obviously Terrence Steele, Michael Gallup, and then Brandon Cooks, not by his own doing, but due to just utilizing him in the offense. I think I don't know, it just doesn't make sense how, like we've talked about with CeeDee Lamb and Jake Ferguson kind of being that more intermediate, like our short to intermediate playmaker routes and stuff. And then you have them, and it'll obviously get utilized later. But then you have Cooks who could take the top off, that then takes someone away from those intermediate short routes. I just think we haven't game planned very well. And I think we've got to figure out a way to get him involved. And then with the bad with Michael Gallup, I mean, he's just regressed so bad.
Yeah.
Not to take anything away from the guy, because, you have ACL surgery, you get paid, you got so much to live up to. And it just seems like he's just not the same player. And that play that he dropped on that shallow route over the middle, that was an easy first down, if not more. We've seen that play in the past where Gallup takes that, specifically, I think, in a couple of years ago against the Giants, where he had that big 3 TD game. Him take that and go for 15 plus yards, break a tackle, do whatever. And here he almost looked surprised that the ball was thrown to him. And I just think that's just such a bad look. And it shows that, Jalen Tolbert's got to start taking those reps. Cavante Turpin's got to start taking those reps.
Isn't it crazy? Isn't it crazy though?
Martavius Bryant, we just signed off the street, might be getting those reps. Like,
please God, no.
And then my last bad one, and I'll be done with my points, is, and not from his own doing, but Hunter Lepke. Okay, Hunter Lepke needs to be utilized.
Watch your mouth.
Not because he's bad, because the coaches aren't utilizing him. I think he could do the same thing the Schoonmaker guy does on the offensive line, being utilized as a tight end that can catch. Or how everybody talks about Zeke, everybody wants Zeke back for short yardage. You got a dude that can cough and go 2 yards. And so it's like, it just doesn't make sense how some of these weapons we don't utilize. But those are my good and bad points from the offense. But overall, was a great game to watch. Honestly, probably insane viewership. And I'm ready for the next, 8 weeks or whatever it is.
The kid, were you going to say something earlier? You said, isn't it crazy?
Isn't it crazy, guys, how nobody predicted this? Why the fuck is Cavante Turpin getting more, offensive reps for, plays than Brandon Cooks? We traded for Brandon Cooks, and for some reason, they be scheming Cavante Turpin. That dude literally was in the blue tent. We thought it was a shoulder injury. He comes in for one play and scores a touchdown before they even give the ball to Brandon Cooks. I don't know.
Do you want my honest answer, or do you want what the Cowboys media will tell you?
We always want you to be honest with us, right?
Yeah, why?
Okay, well, the honest answer is Jerry Jones going down to Mike McCarthy's office and going, that little guy wearing number 9, I really like him. You should scheme up some plays for him. I like him a lot. He's a good ball player, Mikey. He
reminds me of the glory
Tiger. Yeah.
Mikey.
Whoa. Yeah, get it, Big Mike. You got to get him in there. You got to let him score some touchdowns. It's going to be big for us. Big. Yeah, but I totally agree.
Yeah, and one last question, and I just want to ask Jacob. You mentioned that you wanted to get Cooks involved. What do you think is the best way to get him involved? I know he's a deep threat kind of gasher, and we seem to be using him for curl routes exclusively. My my projection would be to get him on man-to-man crossers, to get him in a zone. You got to get him somewhere in the middle of the field to take away a safety. But what do you think is the best way to get Cooks involved?
Well, absolutely, I agree with you. Basically, take the routes that you were calling for Michael Gallup that he can't seem to do anything with, and give them to the faster guy that seems to be able to catch. Because if we've seen like Brandon Cooks running across a shallow route, he catches that ball and can run away from defenders. And then same with having him as, like we talked about last week, him being an X receiver. He can win by himself, whether it be with his speed or his route running ability. And having him on a side with single man-to-man coverage, even him running a slant, that's literally what he does. He runs fast. And so honestly, just taking what you're throwing to Michael
Great
Gallup, where
analysis.
it seems like he's kind of a two-trick pony right now. It's a stop route and a try to jump over somebody, and giving those to Brandon Cooks, because they do it with Kevontae Turpin, and they're very similar. And so I just can't imagine how it can't translate as well as him running, deep routes and taking the top off of the defense and whatnot.
Right. Yeah.
Mike McCarthy turned Brandon Cooks into a jump ball curl specialist. I'm sick, bro. I'm sick to my stomach.
Yeah, he's turned Brandon Cooks into Dalton Schultz almost, and it's just insane. Because this past game, which I predicted it would be the Brandon Cooks game, he caught one pass for 2 yards because he thought he was about to get annihilated, and so he just fell down and then crawled for a first down. It just doesn't make any sense for me.
Yeah. And then the analyst, what is your offensive analysis for this game?
Well, there's been a lot of points that have been made, and I like how everybody's doing the good and the bad and the ugly. So I think everybody's touched on the good. I thought Dak played a great game, and like I said earlier, I'm finally glad to see that somebody else is recognizing that, Dak has not been the problem in these big games. It's always coming down to some nitpicky bullshit penalty that, is crazy. It's just tough because, like, you watch a Dallas game, and I told my wife this when we were watching. It's like watching witchcraft because, like, you literally watch Dak. There's literally video evidence of Dak turning and going, "Hey, this dude right here is eligible. He's eligible, right?" To the ref in the white hat.
Ref's like, yeah.
And the ref literally shakes his head. And Dak turns around. He's like, "All right, I'm gonna snap this ball," and he snaps it. Touchdown. Flag. He's not eligible. It's like, all right.
He had his fingers crossed behind his back, so it didn't count,
anyway,
right?
Yeah. He's like, psych. But anyway, Dak played a phenomenal game. It's just a game of inches, and him stepping out right there for the 2-point conversion that hurt. And granted, we were in desperation mode, but he got us down there and we scored. And then we did it again, and things didn't go our way. We had a bad break, but Dak played very well, and I'm glad. And one of the notes I had is he had 0 turnovers, 374 yards against arguably the best team in football right now in their stadium. So the other thing that I'll say is Lamb's been great. He's hopping, he's getting hot, and everybody's made their points about Cooks and Gallup. I feel the same way about Gallup. He went from being a deep threat specialist to I can only run curl routes, and the guy's going to be on my back, so it better be a perfect throw. But the one thing that I really want to touch on, and the thing that's really going to help this offense grow, is one, Terrence Steele is going to have to learn how to use his feet again. I get what Hunter is saying about going against the best, but he's getting now paid like the best. He used to be last year he was very good. Before he tore his ACL, he was one of our best graded linemen. But, he played at Texas Tech, and the thing is it was weird because Texas Tech, everybody knows they throw the football. Well, last year he was the highest rated right tackle in terms of run blocking. And he didn't have a problem pass blocking. But now all of a sudden I'm watching him play, And the guy's feet are off every time he pass blocks. And when he's going against the best, they force his hands to his chest. And, as an offensive lineman, once they push your hands down or do whatever, you're kind of in oh shit mode. And he's letting him do that to him constantly. It's what got Dak sacked on that last part of the game. I mean, all the stupid idiots that watch the Cowboys just to watch them lose will tell you that, oh, Dak took that sack. Well, he had no time to throw the football. Everybody else had their blocks down. Zach Martin had a clinch. Baez was helping out Smith, and always Tyron Smith has vice grips on whoever he's blocking. And you watch Terrence Steele, and Terrence Steele, pass sets right, guy gets around him, his hands literally are on his knees, and Dak has no time to throw the football, tries to make a play and gets sacked. We have to spike the ball. You know what happens from there. So another part of that for me is Terrence Steele's got to be better if we want to win these big games. And the offense as a whole is firing on cylinders, but when it gets into those game time crunches, you've got to be able to block and give the quarterback time to get the ball off on those long play situations. But the next thing for me is the running game. We do not have a running game. And as I sit here and watch a lot of other teams in the NFL, you just see how much harder and harder it is to be able to run the ball sometimes. But the problem for them is usually they don't have the offensive line to do what they need to do in terms of running the ball. Well, Dallas doesn't have that problem. Dallas's problem is not that they need Zeke. It's not that they can't do it. It's that their scheme does not allow them to do that. They don't run out of the shotgun much. And they don't run any type of pull or pins. They don't run any type of combos to backers. All of it is just man-on-man blocking. Turn around and hand it up to Pollard, who is a better outside the tackle or outside the guard guy. But we're just going to turn around and hand it up Biadish's ass the entire game and hope that on 2nd and 8, and then Dak has to be, third down king on 3rd and 7. So my whole point to that is this game probably would have been a little bit different if we learned how to run the ball outside of the guards. And then to Jacob's point, Hunter Lepke. If we could get Hunter Lepke, if you want to run up the ass of our center the entire night, then just put Hunter Lepke, the 6'2", 250-pound bison, and just let him get 3 or 4 yards. Because that seems to be all we're running the ball for. So that's my ugly in terms of offense. Everything else that has been said, I totally agree with. Except for the Terrence Steele. I expect way more out of him, and he's just not been good.
Yeah.
And Ryan, can you go into depth, because I know you played O-line. You played O-line. Can you go into depth about how difficult it is for an offensive line to go into pass pro all game, basically, because you can't run the ball at all?
Yeah, I think a good point is exactly what you saw on the other side of the game. Is Lane Johnson is known for, looks like he's false starting and all that, but that goes to the point of you got to have some type of run game. I'm a big advocate of throwing the ball and play action and all that, but you have to keep the defense honest. And when they know you're going to throw as an offensive lineman, the way to cheat that is like, I got to take a couple steps back, or I got to jump my own snap count. But all that does is it allows Hassan Reddick or whoever, Terrence Steele or whoever is blocking, it just allows them to pin their ears back because they know, first off,
reading their
Dallas
split.
First off, Dallas is in shotgun. They don't run the ball in shotgun. They're passing the ball. As soon as this ball snapped, I'm running the circle. And that's really hard for offensive linemen. If you're in pass pro all night, it's basically like you're just catching defenders at that point. It's tough. So Dallas, I think, if they're going to be a threat in the playoffs, they're going to have to figure out the run game. And Jacob's absolutely right. That's why the Eagles are so good at protecting Jalen Hurts most of the time, is because they have the threat of Jalen Hurts being able to run, but their offensive line is just – their scheme in terms of running the ball is, in my opinion, probably one of the best schemes out there. Maybe second to the Ravens, but their scheme of running the football is just so good. And that's where Dallas, I think, needs to get better and then utilize Cooks as well.
Yeah. Yeah, and I agree on all fronts.
Oh, well, I was just going to say, My bad, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Go ahead.
Like with Tony Pollard, he seems to have lost like a little bit of juice post injury. You kind of saw it in the Chargers game where he almost took it to the house after he actually made a good broken tackle. But last year he probably would have scored that. And him being a third down back or 3 down back. I'm sorry. He also doesn't have kind of the fresh legs kind of juice. He's having to be in the field on first down, second down. They're gonna have, like you said, we're gonna have to start using Hunter Lepke, Rico Dowdle. Because with Zeke, it's not like Zeke's having an awesome, fantastic year, but with Zeke, he's not playing 3 downs, after getting hit in the knees for 7 years straight in the trenches. He has a little bit, he seems like to have a little bit of boost, but if he was on the Cowboys, wouldn't really, like, he couldn't do anything that we can't do already.
But my counterpoint to that would be how much of it is juice and how much of it is effort and confidence, because Tony Pollard doesn't want to run up the 0 or the 1 gap every time. He's best, and where he had his best runs is in those stretch plays and those pitch plays and those misdirection plays where he's got 2 or 3 linemen out in front of him. When you see him at his best, it's on that play that the Cowboys run like once or twice a game where they motion in a receiver, and on that same side it's basically a crack sweep where they get Tyron Smith out in front of Tony Pollard and he gets 6 or 7 yards. It's stuff like that where it's like, I think Pollard's at his best when he's running outside the guards. And I don't think it's about that he's tired, because they can always spell him, but it's just the fact that they are constantly running him up in there against like Jalen Carter or Aaron Donald, all these guys that we've been playing. It's like, quit doing that and let the dude tire out the defense with his legs. And yes, there are times to run up the middle, but that's why you went out and got Hunter Lepke, and that's why he's on the 53. So
yeah, that was been kind of my big thing about TP over the years, was that he's not really like a true 3-down back, and then with him moving to that role, it's kind of hard to, like, you're gonna have to he's gonna have to establish running up the middle and stuff, because if you only do that with what's his name, like Lepke, then it's not like you're not gonna be able to fool anybody. It's like with Zeke, they ran it up the middle, but they also did those stretch plays that they really didn't work towards the last like 2.5 years he was there. But with like Tony Pollard, you're like, okay, what are they going to, like, even though they might stretch it, by then the defense is already tired. So, like I said, if it's an effort thing, that Tony Pollard is needed to kind of just, take it to the chin and, just go up in the middle, because if he starts to actually hit the hole in the 1 and 0 gap, it would definitely open up more things in the running game. And, with the Eagles, I figured Dak was going to throw 40 times anyway. And what did he throw, like 42 times to begin with? So
44.
Yeah, so I kind of figured that was going to happen. But Tony Pollard, to be like one of the good running backs of this league, which he's still, like, he's one of, like, the better, like, big play guys, or he once was. But to be a true 3-down back, you're going to have to be able to go up the middle and, work your magic. So
yeah, I think one of the things we're forgetting about Tony Pollard especially is that, well, for one, there aren't very many 3-down backs left in this league, and the league has changed into a committee backfield type of a league. And me and Hunter had discussions when we were living together in College Station in separate rooms, that hey, is Tony Pollard a 3-down back? Can he have does he have the ability to do so? And my argument was yes, that he could, and Hunter's was I think he would need that second guy. And I was wrong about that. And I think he does need that second kind of guy, because what we're forgetting about Tony Pollard is he isn't that 4 to 6 yard gasher. He's that 20 to 70 yard gasher on the outside of the tackles, getting outside of the box in open space, whether it be a swing pass, whether it be a sweep, whether it be, like Ryan said, a pull and a kick, getting your best blockers out in front. Well, this is kind of what we talked on the phone earlier about, throwing it to the tight end 4 yards down the field, in a quick hitch route. Well, yeah, there could be other reasons you take that check down. But what I'm seeing is that we're throwing that ball quickly 4 or 5 yards down the field with the expectation yards of possibly being 6 or 7, which is like, okay, so did we just throw that ball just to get to second down and manageable? Because it just makes no sense to me. The same thing, same concept with the runs here is when you're using Pollard in a way where you're not trying to score. Every play you should be trying to score unless you're really trying to game manage, but which our identity is kind of a game manage. So it kind of just plays hand in hand. There are times where you need to gash it with Tony Pollard. There are times where you need to mix it in with Dowdle and Lepke. Absolutely. But my analysis on the offense as a whole, and I want to highlight 1st and 5 from the Philadelphia 6 in the final play of the drive. And this is just unacceptable. I'm guessing I'm going to start with the ugly. False start, first play. Actually, we actually get an encroachment penalty on Dak's hard count. Move it up 5 yards to the 6. False start. Negates a terrible quarterback draw. Then you get a sack for negative 11 yards back to the Philadelphia 17. Then we get an end zone shot play. I believe it was intended for Jalen Tolbert in double coverage in the back left corner of the end zone. Don't understand why that's happening. Delay of game. Baez and Dak have a miscommunication. And then you have a 22-yard gain, from the Philadelphia 27 to CD Lamb short of the mark on a Hail Mary dig. And he tries to pitch it, but there is no pitch man. You just absolutely kicked yourself in the ass there. That's terrible games management. It's, with an opportunity at the 11 or the 6-yard line on 1st and 10, I'm banking that we score there and we win the ball game. So it's just an absolutely brutal moment. But there were 3 different things, and I guess I'll get more into it in the Dak on Track segment. But the 4th and 8, the throw to Jalen Tolbert, the 4th and 1 throw to Luke Schoonmaker rather than the Cooks to Lamb, and then the 3rd and 1 to Gallup. Those left probably close to 20 points on the board. Maybe 17. So that's just brutal. There were just some brutal moments in that game. And, Dak played his heart out, and it's all what you guys were saying. We got to get Cooks more involved. Gallup ain't looking himself, but Tolbert is really making his reps count when he gets the ball. And I've been very impressed with him. We were impressed with him in the preseason. I'm impressed with him now even. And I don't blame that throw route on Jalen Tolbert because I think it was the wrong read by Dak. You're not going to make the right read every single time. And it wasn't even a really bad throw or really a decision, but there was a better read out there. So that just kind of takes film and more, trust in Ferguson as it seemingly seems to be increasing. So, but yeah, Chuma, number 71, our tackle, not identifying eligibility to the ref, and then Dak did it. There was just, Schoonmaker getting tackled before he caught the ball. What I want to know is if when you catch a ball in bounds and take 2 steps and fall out of bounds, you're not ruled out of bounds. It's ruled a catch. So why is it when he completes his football move and determined possession of the ball, that's when the ball was past the pylon for a touchdown, but all of a sudden the rule is changed for that scenario? It doesn't seem right to me. I felt like that was a touchdown, but also felt like it was more of a defensive pass interference. But yeah, just mixing up in the run game, man. Get Lepke in those goal line scenarios. You can do that little split backfield sort of deal, dice something up. The tush push isn't our identity, unfortunately. Even though Dak's a pretty big guy, being 6'3" or 6'2", whatever he is. But that being said, to continue with, I guess the ugly is that the personnel I felt like was crucially wrong on important downs. Having, like I said, that shot play to Tolbert, the 4th and 8 throw to Tolbert, the 4th and 1 flat route, rub route, throwing it to Schoonmaker there. It seemed like it was all that Schoonmaker play was designed for him. But here's some bright spots. Tyron and Tyler Smith are absolute animals. I know Tyron is not going to play every game, but when he's in, he's an absolute monster. And Tyler Smith, like Hunter mentioned, getting better every week. So incredible protection this game by them too. And Tyler completely shut out Jalen Carter from this game, which nobody's going to talk about. But we were told all year long that Jalen Carter was just going to destroy us and we should be scared of him. But the white boy up front, as well as Tyler Smith, locked him down for the most part. And then Jake Ferguson, like y'all mentioned, he is becoming a factor for this offense. and a feature to this offense to where you're going to have to pay attention to him, which is very exciting for our deep passing game. And then, like I mentioned, Jalen Tolbert making his reps count. But let's move into our defensive segment. And I'll start with the defense real quick. I just have a couple of little spots. Philadelphia recovered all 3 of their field goals. And for me, for a team that thrives, fumbles. Thank you. For a team that thrives on turnovers like the Dallas defense, we've got to have those, especially that last one from DeAndre Swift, on that last drive of the game. It just before we get the ball back, but it just was brutal to see that. I think our defense, like the Metro guy has mentioned a lot of times, is our defense has struggled seemingly against the RPO and dual threat quarterbacks, but we did a fairly decent job, especially, in the fourth quarter, of eliminating that presence from the offense. And still, not one receiver from an opponent team has surpassed 100 yards receiving. And I thought it was great that CeeDee Lamb on Darius Slay alone had 4 catches for 65 yards. That's 1 less yard than A.J. Brown had in the game. And on Eli Ricks alone had, I think it was 4 or 5 receptions for 66 yards, which is more reception yards and receptions than Devontae Smith in the game. So CeeDee Lamb freaking showed out and dominated this secondary. So shout out to him. And then last thing I'll say, Parsons, you play like an animal, dude. That was a hold, and you were right to be upset. He's played his ass off, and he made his presence known with Jalen Hurts. So the kid, what did you have on this defense?
I'll be quick and short. One thing is, I didn't think the defense played bad, but I don't think they played awesome. They had a little bit of trouble at times getting off the field, especially on that first drive where they converted 2 fourth downs. That's kind of been a problem with Dallas over the years, just kind of getting off the field. Another thing is that I don't blame the refs for really anything. The thing was, there was a lot of ticky-tack calls for both teams, and it tremendously slowed down the game. The game was over at 6:50. It started at 3:25. It was almost 3.5-hour game.
Gosh.
And with the defense, Micah Parsons played really well. I think with the Eagles, the second half, with the Jalen Hurts getting kind of injured right before the halftime, I think it kind of made them to where, besides that first drive of the third quarter, they weren't really throwing the ball that much. There was a lot of running, just kind of, getting DeAndre Swift involved. With that being said, like Micah Parsons, dog. You know what I'm saying? Deron Bland played very well.
Yeah. Yes.
You guys saw it. You know who they were picking on? Jordan Lewis. Lewis, he's just not him anymore, coming off a kind of serious injury. Besides that, though, I think Dallas's defense is going to be very fine the next 4 weeks. They'll probably be must starts in all those games for fantasy. Yeah, I don't want to do too much because I don't want to take up all the points, but defense, you didn't score touchdowns, you didn't play bad, you didn't play well. Refs, ticky-tack calls, both teams kind of bullshit, but it's whatever. We move on. We see the Eagles December 10th in Dallas. I'm gonna try to go to that game. If anybody wants to join, I'm gonna work on it.
Let's get it. I'm glad you mentioned Deron Bland. He had a great game against those 2 primary receivers. Had that one deep ball, great ball. A little bit of a shove there by Smith, but yeah, Bland is continuing to show out. Medical guy.
Yeah. So I just had my points. My points, I had good, okay, and bad for the whole Dallas game, and my defense was on my okay list. I think I sent this text to y'all in case I wasn't going to be on here. I thought the defense played okay, but at the same time, you got to set the expectation. The Philadelphia Eagles are a good team. They have a good offense. They have a great offensive line, and so holding them to 27 points, I don't think was terrible. I think they played 3 quarters of great football on defense. However, as you do with good football teams, if you slow up for a quarter or a few plays, you know, it can really come back to, or they scored 28, sorry, not 27. But you slip up for a quarter, and that's really what kind of got us beat right there, is because I think they scored 14 in the third quarter. Like they came out and, you know, from half to the end of the third quarter, they scored 14 points, and that kind of was a big difference in the game and really changed the dynamic to where then Cowboys had to go on the super aggressive, offensive Superman type play. And so I thought they played okay. I thought they played enough to win, good enough to win. You know, like we've talked about previously in this pod, is that, you know, it was a game of inches. 3 fumbles that we don't recover, that doesn't normally happen, and especially with 3 fumbles where, you know, our defensive players are around the ball too. It wasn't like something crazy or anything like that. So that was kind of strange. I thought the defensive line played really well. Jordan Lewis was not very good. I would expect to see some more Wanye Thomas in these next few games, playing a little more to cover some of those tight ends, maybe some of those third receivers and stuff like that, because Dallas Goedert kind of ripped us on a couple of those. And then I think the defense has got to start putting Sam Williams in more. It seems like whenever he gets in, he makes plays wherever he plays. I think he's definitely got to be on the field more and you know, continuing to provide some sort of substance and another quick, strong edge rusher outside of, you know, D-Law and Michael Parsons. But I thought they played well enough to win the game, but just a couple things didn't go away. Like Hunter said, some of the penalties were very iffy and kind of kept them on the field. But, you know, it happens sometimes. But that's kind of my points on the defense.
Yeah. You never want the refs to have a hand in the game. Causes a negative impact on viewership and pisses me off. The analyst, your final statements on the defensive side of the ball?
I don't really have much to add here other than I thought they played good for 3 quarters and not too good for 1 quarter, and it kind of changed the whole aspect of the game. Marquise Bell is still my guy to watch on the defense. He played really well. And then I do agree with Jacob. We got to get Sam Williams on the field a little bit more. But, you know, I agree that the penalties were just detrimental to the defense. I felt like, you know, you could say there's a couple penalties each way that were bad, but I felt like the Dallas ones were more detrimental to our style or to our team than they were to the Eagles. But, you know, that's something you can't control. What we can control is our defensive play, and I thought they played good, not great. And, you know, if a couple fumbles go our way and a couple different things, you know, Dallas is in this game. But that's all I'll say.
Yeah. All right, well, let's get into our DAK on track segment. We're going to bring out, per usual, the next gen stats passing chart and provide a letter grade for Dak Prescott. So here we are. We got 29 of 44, 374 yards, 3 touchdowns with a plus 6.0% CPOE. You can see a lot of throws deep downfield, 1 touchdown, over 10 yards, a couple of check down touchdowns as well. A lot of completed passes over the middle, a couple deep over the middle as well. And then a lot of green dots, which is what we love to see from Dak Prescott in games where you're playing the best record team in the league. So what I have for Dak Prescott and the Dak on track, and I wanted to get into this earlier, is Dak made great plays on crucial downs to maneuver the offense the length of the field, and was consistently able to put his team in a position for touchdowns. However, failing to capitalize on 4th and 1, 4th and 8, and on the 2-point conversion, and on 1st and 5 from the Philadelphia 6 was brutal. And it's not like, you know, the medical guy's term earlier. It's not to say that it was his fault, but it was just brutal that they didn't go our way. I'm gonna try and phrase this as it was in my head. Dak Prescott has become a quarterback in this game to where it was like situationally, you want to throw the ball to your best players, but either the scheme or him himself has opted to throw to someone who probably should not have gotten the ball in that exact scenario. Like on 4th and 1, you have Schoonmaker on that flat. However, on the other side, Lambs and Cooks run a perfect pick route, leaving Cooks wide open in the end zone, and that's just going to be look at the film and be like, but it makes you feel like that Schoonmaker play was designed. And then, of course,
I would like to comment on that.
Well, I'll do this last one with the Ferguson is checking off Ferguson and immediately moving off to Tolbert on the 4th and 8, and Ferguson ends up wide open. But yeah, I give him a B plus, 88, basically an 88.7 of how he put a number on it. So, but what were you going to say, Ryan?
Just on that play where he threw to Schoonmaker, if you go back and watch the film, the Eagles called an overload blitz to the right side. And that's where they had Lamb and Cooks. And
you can the blitz.
Yeah, Dak threw opposite of the blitz because he knew he wasn't going to have time to have that window. And, things shook out the way they did. So that's just on that play alone. I don't know about the Tolbert play, but that wouldn't have been there in time for him to actually get a good ball out. So I think he saw that coming, which is why he went to Schoonmaker, which sucks because it was Schoonmaker instead of maybe Ferguson or somebody else. But I think that speaks more to scheme or who was on the field. But yeah.
All right. Well, what is your Dak on track?
Mine is, if you look at this passing chart, it just shows a typical Dak passing chart, which is he uses the entirety of the field in almost every game he plays. Unlike somebody else that I always criticize, Russell Wilson. He's very, very good at hitting everywhere on the field and using all of his targets. So I'm going to agree with Jared here, B plus on Dak. He had great numbers this game. If we just came out on top, it would have been an easy A for me. It was just in certain situations we couldn't get it done. And not all of that is on Dak. That's a team thing. But, he had a great game, and he's kind of proven like, hey, I still belong in the top 10 conversation or top 12, wherever you want to argue. But, he had a great game away. And I think that gives them a lot of confidence moving forward throughout the season.
Yeah, I mean, through 5 games, Dak Prescott had 5 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. In his last 3, he has 8 touchdowns, 1 interception. So he's had a great past 3 weeks. So props, to Dak Prescott there. And the kid, what is your Dak on track letter grade?
Well, for one, I don't know why every time I do these, I always have a higher grade than y'all for Dak. I don't know what it is. I don't know what.
For hard graders, I guess.
Yeah, and then next thing, but it's like, I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me. I think I like Dak more than y'all like Dak, apparently, because it's getting
Maybe
to
you
that
do.
point.
You're like I'm not going to call you a woman, but with women, like they don't. No, listen, hear me out. Women like dudes usually by hating them. So if they hate on him so much, they're like, she's definitely got the hots for me because she's being mean. So maybe you have the hots for Prescott. You just don't want to admit it yet.
Yeah. Hey, thanks for mansplaining how a woman thinks, Jared. Thanks for that, man.
Well, it's a Sigma myself.
The women watching and listening are really gonna enjoy that.
Yeah, the 1% of our listeners. Yeah.
Yeah. So what I like to say with Dak has played his best ball consistently for the first time since post ankle break and pre calf injury. So I'm talking like just every game it's just like boom, boom, boom. And I haven't really seen a Dak consistently do that, like I said, in a long time. I'm glad the 49ers smoked this team because it's like the Thunderstruck movie with Kevin Durant, that little kid. They switched powers for a little bit, and then the 49ers, they played their Super Bowl, and next thing you know, they can't do dog shit anymore. And then you got Dak over here who's been playing his best 3 games all year. Another thing is with Dak, I'm going to give him an A, which kind of gives me to, it wasn't about the throws that he missed. or made. It's just more of, which I kind of wanted to ask y'all, because he missed a lot of reads. Is missing a throw worse than missing a read? Which one I kind of want to get a kind of a take that y'all think, like, is it worse if he would have made the read and then missed the throw, or is it he missed the
Made
wrong
the
read?
throw but missed the read.
Yeah, I don't know which one is kind of like.
I think missing a throw is worse than missing a read.
I agree.
I think that if you make your read, you're usually making a good throw. But if you miss your throw, you kind of goes into play with, it was a bad read, or it looks a lot worse if you made the right read but made a bad throw. It's
No,
like,
that's what I'm
wide
saying.
open.
That's what I'm
Exactly.
saying.
Yeah.
Man. That's what I'm
So I
saying.
think
Like, is it worse that he did that if it's someone like,
yeah,
like someone who's completely open, right? And they like overthrow him, or then
Yeah.
you got the guy who's open and he doesn't get. There's like,
So a perfect example is that Cook's curl route. I think it was earlier in the game that Dak like heaved over his head, and he did have a little bit of pressure. It was the right read, but it was a bad throw, and I think it brought up a third or fourth down. Might have been on the first possession, actually. I could be wrong, but like in that instance, yeah, I would say, in my opinion, a missed throw is worse than a misread. I think that's what I said the first time, right?
Yeah. No, that's cool. I just wanted to know. I kind of wanted to do a little quick open discussion. But yeah, I'm gonna give him an A.
Okay.
He's been playing very, very good these last 3 games, and I don't know why these Dak disciples over here don't want to give him an A. But when if I would have gave him a B minus, I'd be a fucking hater. But I'm gonna give him an A, and then it's like.
Damn, bro, I gotta come out with the Dak disciple verse.
I was between B plus and A minus.
Me too. That's why I put the number grade there, because I was like, he was very close to an A, but
That's all.
The medical guy.
All right. I didn't know if Hunter was done or not. But I'm gonna be on Hunter's side. I actually have him at an A plus. And I have him at an A plus because you could I can whatever. You can say whatever you want. If we're gonna say wins are QB stats or not QB stats, and you can't give them an A plus. But like, if you look at this game, the Cowboys are getting beat 28-0 with 64 yards on the ground, not even that much, 50 yards on the ground without Dak Prescott, and you can look at the last 3 games. I mean, Dak's been as good as he's ever been in the last 3 games, whether it be decision, whether it be throws, whether it be making plays with his feet, whatever. He's just been on one. And like James Jones said back in our Shatter the Script, everybody talks about, does Dak show up? Doesn't he show up? Does he not make the plays? Like, this is the Dak we've seen plenty of times before. And, it seemed like situation after situation, play after play, he showed up. I mean, yes, you could say he might have overthrown a guy, or he might have made not the greatest throw. But at the same time, you look at these last 3 games, this one specifically, how many times can you look and be like, oh, he made a bad throw?
Right. Yeah. Not very many times in this game.
Like this game, I saw one throw that was not great, and it's the one you were talking about.
Cooks.
And it was because he was under pressure. And even decision-wise, like, yes, slowing it down on film and frame by framing it, it's real easy to be like, hey, he needs to make this read. And it's like, well, yeah, it's real easy to watch Madden NFL All 22 and be like, yeah, what the hell Dak's looking at? But at the same time, every majority of every play, what have we talked about being a weakness? Terrence Steele. He had someone, and they literally took turns off Terrence Steele. And so he had to make decisions like that. And so the reason I'm giving him an A to A plus is because we essentially had no offense if it weren't for Dak Prescott.
Yeah.
And the Eagles knew it. We knew it. You knew, and like we talked about dropping in the pass pro all game and pass set. Everybody on the field, everybody watching the game knew what was coming. It was Dak. Like, yes, we had a run every now and then, but majority of the time it didn't work out. I thought Dak played out of his mind. I thought he played good enough to win the game. And if you look at every big play that happened in the game, especially on the offensive side, it was because, good or bad, it was because, and when I say bad, Schoonmaker not making it into the end zone. Checking if a lineman was eligible, stepping out of bounds on the 2-point conversion.
Trying to make
all
a
of
play,
it,
coach.
All of it was because and in Dak Prescott's hands. And so that's why I'm giving the A+, because he was the reason this game was even competitive. And so that's kind of my grade. It seems like me and Hunter on the same side, and then the other two guys are. Did I cut out?
Yeah, just a second, but it caught back up. Yeah, you're good.
Okay, cool. But me and Hunter on the same side, giving Dak Prescott an A to A+, and the other Dak disciples are turning into some Judases and just betraying everybody. So
yeah, well, Dak, why have I forsaken you?
Dak, you are a top 3 light-skinned quarterback in the league.
Let's go. Oh, yes. Hunter, I want to ask you, who is the winner of the light skin war, in your opinion?
The light skin war.
The quarterback battle. Jalen Hurts versus Dak. In this game.
Man to man, it's Dak Prescott. But the Eagles won the game as a whole.
That's correct. I agree. I have the same stance on that. Dak Prescott won the light skin war. But Jalen Hurts, you got the dub. All right. Well, let's predict the Giants versus the Cowboys Week 10 matchup, 3:25 on Fox at AT&T Stadium. Be short and sweet. I mean, this is just brutal. Tyrod Taylor out. Unfortunately, Daniel Jones tore his ACL. I've got the Cowboys winning big in this one, and I don't think it'll be close, but you never know what's going to happen with the Dallas Cowboys. But I've got the Cowboys winning 38-20. I think Parsons in the pass rush eats heavily. Maybe we might see a couple defensive touchdowns in this ball game. But in order to win, my keys to success, Dallas needs to establish a formidable running game in the next 3 weeks. Lepke and Dowdle need to get involved, like we mentioned before. Remain healthy, I think, is the primary thing. We can't afford to have any injuries against these teams that are on paper not any good. Then win the games that you should. New York Giants, Carolina, Washington on Thanksgiving, and Seattle against Geno to prep for your second matchup versus the Eagles in Week 14. But yeah, Cowboys 38, Giants 20, and Mamas, don't let your Cowboys give quarterback number 3 time to throw. Completely embarrassed the Giants again on Sunday. How about him? The kid.
Dallas wins 35-10. Mamas, do not let your Cowboys take the foot off the gas. The Cowboys should win their next 4 games. Toughest one will be Seattle. It's going to be the Thursday game after the Thanksgiving game. And expect the Cowboys to bull rush this team. And 35-10, I don't want to recap it or predict it for y'all because y'all would probably just leave the pod because it's going to be a fucking massacre. So 35-10, Dallas.
The medical guy.
Yeah, Hunter and I share the same opinion again on the score. 35-10 Dallas for me. My keys to success are don't be too cute. Take care of business. I think this is a get-right game. New York has no weapons, so you are literally better than them at every position, so be better. And then a couple other points. This needs to be a Cooks and Pollard game. We need to figure out how they can play and play well and produce. And then it would be great to have the starters out by the fourth quarter. And my mamas, don't let your Cowboys get injured in this game. So, the analyst, what do you have?
First off, I don't know how Jared thinks the Giants are going to score 20 points, but my prediction here is Cowboys 65, Giants 7. You don't have any keys to success here, and I'm not even going to throw out anything other than the Cowboys should have their starters out by half. And then Mamas, don't let your Cowboys. I just had Mamas, don't let your Cowboys be down about that loss last week. You're one play away from winning. So, yeah, that's all I have for this game. This should be like I should be able to walk away from my TV after the second quarter.
All right. Well, what you're saying is we're gonna get a smoking that pack video for next week.
Well, I sure hope so. If they don't, I'm retiring. So
Makes a whole lot of sense there. All right. The medical guy and the analyst, y'all get y'all's 2-minute drill. We'll start with the medical guy with medical analysis, followed by analytical, statistical, whatever AL word you want to come up with next. Analysis from you guys, the 2-minute drill. The medical guy, well, what do you got?
All right, we got the 2-minute drill. We'll lead us in. We'll do it like last week. I'll go over quickly the injury list, and then we'll go into a certain video that we'll go over, and then we'll pass it on to Ryan after the DB list. So starting off, we've got Kyler Murray, Mr. Call of Duty himself. He was expected to return this week. So Jared, you have a quarterback. Jamar Chase ended up on the injury list with a back injury. And they mentioned it last game that he was kind of slowed up during that game due to that back injury. David Montgomery, running back for the Lions, he's supposed to return this week as well. So Jahmyr Gibb owners, get ready to stash him on your bench or play him and get mad for the rest of the year. Next is Christian Watson. He's got a chest and back injury. He was ruled with no concussion, but is ruled questionable. And it's interesting if you are suspicious of a concussion, that's not necessarily a good thing. And then one of your favorite players, Jared, Kaimi Fairbairn, the kicker for the Texans. He has a groin strain, and he's out for 3 weeks. So you don't have a kicker. Don't let Jared tell you anything different. That's his favorite player. Next, we have Josh Palmer. He has been moved to the IR due to a knee injury. Next is Matt Stafford, thumb injury. He's actually ruled out. Jared's second favorite player, and actually he dressed up for his Halloween, Carson Wentz. He has been signed to that team to play quarterback, so we'll see how that goes. Jalen Waddle, he ended up on here with a knee injury. They actually came out and said that his knee looks worse than what they expected from that Chiefs game, so something to keep an eye out. Tyrod Taylor, out with rib injury. Daniel Jones, out, ACL injury. Dallas Goedert, broken forearm, out. That's a big-time tight end for the Eagles.
Dirty play.
Considered a dirty play, but apparently you can't get tackled and get hurt, and it'd be clean. Deebo Samuel is expected to play this week, coming back from his shoulder injury. So now Brock Purdy will return back to his top 10 status, according to Ryan, the analyst. And next, we'll get into the video that I'm going to show you. So this is going to be Daniel Jones tearing his ACL, and we'll just go over it real quick. So I'm going to go. We're going to do this right. We're going to share the screen.
Yeah, we're going to share the screen, and we're going to share it. I want to know how Kaimi Fairbairn's my favorite player.
You told me before we got on the pod, but whatever. All right. Can y'all see this?
Yeah, there we go. Yep.
It looks okay. All right, cool.
Hold on. There we go.
Oh my God. Yeah. So
there we go.
It's his right knee. So this video is actually kind of slowed down a little bit. Okay. Look at his right knee. Okay, you'll see it. And it actually is weird because it's non-contact. So you can kind of see his knee go in a little bit, but there's not anything too crazy. You know, normally when you think of these injuries, it's something where, you know, it's like, oh my God, that looks disgusting. And similar kind of like the Kirk Cousins injury we talked about last year. And so, or not last year, last week. You know, it didn't take a whole lot for that to happen. However, some of the worst injuries and ACL injuries like that end up non-contact end up being worse injuries. And, you know, a few years ago with Teddy Bridgewater, he actually had a whole knee dislocation due to a non-contact injury. And just with that ACL, how he kind of went into the motion is it's more prone when you're in a flexed and valgus motion. So your knee going inward causes that tibia to then stretch away from that femur to where it's connected, and that's where it tears. And so unfortunate thing, big time for Daniel Jones. He just got back from that neck injury. ACL surgeries, especially when I guess you have some of the most qualified people to rehab and do the surgery for you. For an NFL quarterback, probably going to be about 6 to 9 months. Okay. And a lot of recent research and studies have shown that the quicker you return, and I know this sounds almost too simple, but the quicker you return, the more likely you are to get injured. So with a lot of these injuries, they really want to play more towards that 8 to 9 month return, maybe even 10 month, to make sure you're for certain back to where you're supposed to be, rather than doing the whole Adrian Peterson thing where he came back in like 5.5 months, but then ended up kind of derailing his career a little bit because he was never the same after that. So that's just kind of the little injury analysis. I know that was kind of a big one this week. And it just sucks for the guy. Hopefully he comes back and ends up being the same or a better player than he was before. But now for the DB list.
The DB list.
The DB list for me this week. And it might be a little recency bias because last night I played it, hopped on Call of Duty, and Modern Warfare 2 sucks ass, and Warzone 2 sucks ass. And I am so ready for Modern Warfare 3 to come out and them to get rid of whatever version of Warzone is on right now and throw it in the trash and we never speak of it again. It is honestly one of the worst games I've ever played, and every time I get on it, I'm like, this game sucks.
Good
It makes
God,
me
you
want
must
to
have
go.
gotten absolutely
Yeah.
slaughtered the last couple.
It makes me want to act like your older brother Travis, and I'm 30 years old and I can't act like that, but it really makes me want to just shove my fist
with
through a
bang,
wall. And so the creators for that game, for this game, Modern Warfare 2 and Warzone 2, need to reevaluate their life and their jobs and come out with a better version of the game here in the next week or two. So my DB list, and I saw Ryan nodding his head with me, is Modern Warfare 2 and Warzone 2 specifically.
Modern Warfare 3 coming out November 10th.
Yeah. And that wraps up my part of the 2-minute drill.
All right,
On
Ryan.
to you, Ryan.
All right, boys. Well, this is the 2-minute drill, the analysis approach. We are at the halfway point, so I did something a little different this week, kind of shouting out what we've seen so far and what to look forward to maybe going forward. So, halfway point. We're going to start here with CJ Stroud boy. He's had about 2,300 yards, 14 touchdowns, 1 interception. He's coming off a massive game. He's proven that he belongs in this league, unlike any other OSU quarterback that has ever came out of OSU. And the Texans have a good base to build off of. Next up, we have Sam Howell. He's had about 2,500 yards, 14 touchdowns. He has a lot of picks. He's had a lot of bright spots, but what's killing him is the turnovers late in games. And this can be fixed with a good OC like Bieniemy. So next up, we got Lamar Jackson. I've always been pretty critical of Lamar, but he's finally figuring out how to be a good to great passer. I'd be a little bit more on the good side, but he's all he needs to be. That's all he needs to be with his legs. And then next, I've got Joe Burrow. Struggled early on in the season, but he looks elite once again, and his defense is really, really good once again. And then we're going to move on to some running backs. So I think the running backs that everybody's been kind of talking about this year, McCaffrey, you could make the argument that he's an MVP. He's already got 652 yards and 9 touchdowns. Devon Achane, my God, when he comes back, is he going to keep this up? I mean, he's looked like Chris Johnson early in the season, and he could be helpful to Miami's woes against bad teams. I mean, in 4 games, he had 460 yards, and that's 12.1 a carry. And then next we have Swift. He's been a big, huge help to the Eagles' running game. 614 yards and 3 touchdowns. He's kind of made a comeback after getting left behind from the Lions. Then some receivers. I've got A.J. Brown, historic run, arguably a top 3 receiver in this league. CeeDee Lamb, he's starting to heat up. I think he will finish top 5 in yards by the end of the year. And then Puka Nacua, I put him on here because he's on the top of the charts in terms of receiving yards, while he has been good, I think this was kind of like a Linsanity moment. Cool story, but like it won't last. And then some defensive guys. I made a category for these guys. Still a G category. You got TJ Watt, Myles Garrett, Michael Parsons, Danielle Hunter for the Vikings. He's got 10 sacks. Khalil Mack, he's still playing good. And then the linebacker for the Lions, his name slips me right now, but that guy has been elite.
Tony or whatever.
And yes, the white guy with the long hair, and then Aiden Hutchinson for the Lions has been a beast. And then some lockdown guys at corner. You got Deron Bland, been absolutely stepping up in the term of Trayvon Diggs' absence. You've got both the Jets corners. They've been great. DJ Reed and Sauce Gardner, they're the only reason the Jets are remotely there anymore. And then the Williams brothers there as well. They've been really good. Denzel Ward for the Browns has been one of the top cornerbacks in that elite Cleveland offense or defense. And then PS2 has been pretty good. So then I have my own type of DB list, and this is called the disappointments of this year. And we're going to start with Josh Allen. He seems to be leveling it out. He's had some good, like if you go look at his QBR moments, he's been really good against good teams or bad teams, but like hasn't been too hot against the other teams. And this will surprise nobody. I've got the Russell Wilson Broncos team. Everybody thought when they went and got Sean Payton that would change their lives, and it didn't do anything. And then we've got the Saints. What in the hell are they doing? We've talked about them enough on this podcast. Good God, I cannot watch them anymore. And then I've got Devontae Adams on here as well. Somebody get him out of the Las Vegas Raiders organization. He's just, my God, he looks miserable. He looks like a sad dog sitting on the porch waiting for some food.
I know a way he could drive 130 miles an hour on the highway. That'll get him out of the Raiders.
Jesus.
Okay, moving on. So we've got the Jets. The Jets are still in the race, maybe not after last night, but you can't help but wonder if you're a Jets fan that if A-Rod was out there where your team would be right now. And then the Packers. The Packers have also been a major disappointment. They thought they were going to have their forever luck of all-time great wide receiver quarterback combos, and Jordan Love looks like crap, and Christian Watson hasn't done anything. And then kind of building off of last year, Deshaun Watson. I think Deshaun Watson has been a major disappointment. They can't keep him on the field, and I've been saying this for a while. I think everybody thought that he'd come back and be like what he used to be. But I just think the one thing that, everybody's talking about is playing whatever. I think he's dealing with like overwhelming guilt and shame. And I think it's completely changed how he plays. And they can't do it anymore. So, yeah. And then the last one on this list is who the Cowboys play on Sunday is the Giants. Everybody thought that the Giants were going to be a playoff team and Brian Daboll was going to put it together. But, oh, my God, they look horrible. And now they're down to the third QB. And I think Daboll's going to start beating the shit out of whoever's playing quarterback. Because every time you watch him and every time Daniel Jones is out on the field, he made a mistake. It looked like Brian Daboll was about to drop his mic and start throwing hands. So anyway, that's kind of my disappointments and some highlights. I just tried to pick a couple guys that are maybe flying under the radar and doing some different things. But, I think your MVP candidates at the half of the year, it's always going to be a quarterback, but McCaffrey has played well. A.J. Brown has been electric. Lamar Jackson's playing MVP again. And then you could even throw Jared Goff in there at times. Maybe he's lost some games, but Jared Goff has been playing electric. And yeah, so that's the 2-minute drill at the halfway point of the 2023 NFL season.
The disappointment list. It sucks we don't have any Russell Wilson passing chart, but luckily that man's on bye, so he doesn't get to get exposed on the TRAK podcast today.
Exposed enough. I don't even know if it's worth showing anymore. He's been so. It's like what I said earlier. Every game's like 18 of 23, 183 yards. 2 touchdowns, an interception, and nothing. He's throwing over 10 yards.
I'm kind of upset we didn't look at his Instagram because I'm sure he's enjoying a bye week and probably posted a video and was like, "What's up, guys? I'm out here in Cabo, celebrating, with the wife, Sierra. Sierra, say hi. Fuck you. All right." But Mr. Unlimited Sex. But yeah, Russell Wilson, you're lucky you weren't on the passing chart analysis today from the Analyst, hated by T-Law. But we got the first in a while, the kids' picks, brought to you by The Peak over there in the top right corner. What do you got for the kids' picks? It's definitely not week 8, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, guys, for the kids' picks this week, I got DJ Moore over 54.5 receiving yards versus the Carolina Panthers. Now, for you guys who remember the last time when I had DJ Moore on Thursday Night Football, the Analyst knows pretty well because he was going against him in fantasy and he put up 50 points. DJ Moore against his whole team, expect him to force feed. Then we got Christian McCaffrey over 71.5 rushing yards versus Jacksonville. Jacksonville doesn't really have a good run defense. McCaffrey's the best running back in football. Should be easy pickings. I bet you by Friday, C-Max 71.5 rushing yards will probably be closer to 75, 76 because Price Picks likes to pocket watch you. Then I got Alvin Kamara over 35.5 receiving yards. He's been kind of, playing with it a lot, no homo. But the thing is, at the moment, every time Derek Carr throws the football, it's like he's throwing a cotton ball in a tornado. So he can't throw the ball past 4 yards. So expect Kamara to get a lot of, short passes because when you got an arm that can't throw a football and it looks like you're throwing a cotton ball in a tornado, it's not going to go good.
A wet noodle.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's we're gonna keep it plain and simple. Those are 3 must locks of the week, and like I said, the McCaffrey one by Friday. And if not Friday, Saturday will be about 75, 76 rushing yards versus Jacksonville. Get these lines early because they're pocket watchers. They'll try to take your money. Fuck them though. We're getting our own money. Let's ride.
Free money. Free money.
Free money.
And that's kids picks of the week. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, well, let's get into the Rooks Looks start and sit 'em for the fantasy football Week 9 recap. I told you guys to start Dalton Kincaid, Buffalo tight end. We ended up getting 16.10 PPR points, 10 out of 11 receptions, 81 yards, and a fumble loss. Like I said, Knox was on IR, heavy involvement in his absence. He's had a great last 3 games. He's a must start going forward. I told everybody to start Quentin Johnson because I figured, him being wide receiver 2 would probably get some production out there. But 3.60 PPR points, 2 receptions, 14 yards. He was in 83% of the snaps. He just didn't get thrown the ball at all. I told everybody to sit Will Levis, and I ignored my own advice and made a very snap decision by starting him for some strange freaking reason. But 9.68 PPR points, 22 of 39 completions, 262 yards, and an interception on Thursday Night Football versus the Pittsburgh Steelers. I felt like Vrabel kind of condensed the playbook from the previous week. Must have been maybe the short week. Maybe he can bounce back with this next game. Then we had Jordan Addison, Minnesota wide receiver. I told everybody to sit him as well. 10.20 PPR points, 5 out of 7 receptions for 52 yards. Josh Dobbs, shout out Josh Dobbs, came in on Tuesday, never even met any of the players, knew the playbook. I had to be reminded of the cadences as soon as he came in. He came in with a comeback victory and an absolute dub. So shout out to Josh Dobbs. But yeah, Jordan Addison, mediocre game in productivity, but he should be all right going forward as maybe a wide receiver 3. And I told everybody the sleeper pick, and this was a risk, and I understood that. But Chuba Hubbard, Carolina running back, 10.70 PPR points. He essentially got his sleeper projection, but 16 carries, 58 yards, and 4 out of 6 reception targets were caught for 9 yards. So maybe he is a flex receiver flex running back going forward. If you're low on depth, you're probably using this kind of guy. 4 receptions for 9.
I wasn't expecting 4 yards for 9 yards or 4 catches for 9 yards, bro. That shit threw me off.
I hope I didn't get that shit wrong, but I was like, I was thinking, dang, did I read that shit right? But all right. So on the week 9 recap, I had 3 out of 5 right. I mean, you can count maybe the sleeper, but that's 2 weeks in a row. I'm getting the hang of this shit. So hopefully we can go for 3. Week 10, start Situms. Start Amari Cooper, Cleveland wide receiver. I'm taking a risk with this one. I know it's an away game versus a Baltimore defense. I think he is highly productive when Deshaun Watson is in the game, despite Deshaun Watson's woes. So hopefully Amari Cooper gets some production and maybe gets in the end zone. Excuse me. Start Rachaad White. This is a must start from here on out. The Tampa Bay running back, just a PPR god in the running back category. I mean, high upside. Even when the run game is weak, he's getting 5+ receptions a game and multiple targets. Sit woke boy Dalton Schultz, Houston tight end, has not produced versus a good defense so far this year outside of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. If you would want to count them as a top 10 defense, I say they're formidable, but there's upside there. Stash if possible, but if you got to start them, obviously I get it. Roll the dice. Sit Jacoby Myers. I'm not sure he's going to get. This is a Las Vegas wide receiver. I'm not sure he's going to get a lot of productivity with Aiden O'Connell in the game. He didn't see a lot of action in their game, although they went up very early. Went up big very early. So this is a Jets secondary as well. It's going to be tough for Aiden O'Connell to overcome that. And then our sleeper of the week is Jahan Dotson, Washington Commanders wide receiver, the second-year guy out of Penn State. 3 straight games of productivity. Howell is him currently. I mean, he is dicing every defense he plays for the most part, and I think he's a wide receiver 3 flex option for week 10. And then, of course, we've got our heave of the week, and this one is going to be fun. So let me pull it up right quick for our heave of the week. It's actually the Washington Commanders and the Washington Commanders and New England Patriots game. Sam Howell on the throw here. So let's get this wild up for the heave of the week. All right, everybody can see that. There we go. Open it up. Pause. All right.
Play by play.
Here we go.
To the roar.
Washington Commanders versus the New England Patriots. 17-10 ball game here midway through the third quarter. Just under 7 minutes to go. Play clock running low. Sam Howell already has 195 yards. He takes a snap. He gets a blitz from the left side. Collects his feet. Into double covers. Threads the needle to Jahan Dotson, who hits the gritty. And Jahan Dotson scores. He is your sleeper of the week.
Second down and 10.
Howell, dick on him, son. Great throw there by Sam Howell in this game. Washington Commanders come out the victory. Are they a sleeping NFC East playoff team to get that 7th seed? I don't think so, but they could be. Probably not.
Well, we know Hunter's point of view, so
we understand Hunter's point of view on that one, and that is my Rooks Looks starter set for the week. Thank you. Now let's get into our track hierarchy. Honestly, we're all kind of freestyling this thing. There's some people that are making the tier list. There's some people that are making the top 10. There's some people that might have dabbled into some of the playoff standings now that we're at the midway point. I have some playoff stuff I might go over. But nonetheless, the kid, start off with your track hierarchy, tier list, playoff list, whatever you got.
All right. Well, guys, I like to kind of spice things up because I'm Mexican. So everything, I'm going to do a little bit different. I'm going to do top 10 QB nicknames. I'm going to change it up. All right. Number 1, I got LaGreedy. Number 2, I got my homeboy.
who's LaGreedy?
Lamar Jackson.
Oh.
Damn it.
I've never heard that.
Yeah,
Never heard that when
he was when he was trying to get a contract and they offered him money and he said no, so people started calling him LaGreedy. So
my second favorite's La Parlay with LeBron. I really feel like the Browns are going to win this game.
Number 3, I got Jaw for Josh Allen. 4, Joe Shiesty, that's my dog. 5 is AR-15. Number 6, I got Tua turn the ball over.
Move it up.
7, I got Jared Goff. Number 8, I got Kirko Chains. 9 is Nathan Peterman, and number 10 is Dak. And that's going to be my top 10 QB ranking nicknames for the week.
Wait, did you say
Goff in there?
Yeah, did you just say Jared Goff?
Jared May Goff. Yeah.
I threw something in. I like his name, so that's fine. So I'm going with it. Top 10.
Top 10 quarterback names. You heard it here first from the kid. Here. The medical guy, what is your track hierarchy?
So I just went with my same tier list, and then obviously there'll be the ones that are towards the top of it will be, I think, playoff teams. But I added a new column here. I have bad and young. So I have the Bears, the Colts, the Panthers, and the Falcons in the bad and young category. I have the bad but young, and I have the Washington Commanders, I have the Tennessee Titans, and I have the Green Bay Packers. Okay. I have just bad, and these are pretty obvious. I have the Cardinals, even with Kyler Murray, K1 coming back. I have the Steelers, who I don't know how they win games. They look like a bottom 2 to 3 team to me. Then we have the Patriots, the Giants. The Giants can be put in a category where it's bad and no QBs. The Raiders, and then the Broncos. Then I have my teams that are I don't know teams, because it seems like when I talk about them, I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. And I have the Chargers, the Jets, the Saints, the Buccaneers, the Rams, the Vikings, and the Texans. Next, I have the OK list, and that's going to be the Bills, the Browns, the Seahawks, and maybe a surprise right here, the Dolphins. So after seeing, I guess we're 9 weeks in, and seeing that the Dolphins can beat bad teams very easily and lose to good teams, it's like, well, can't really decide if you're good or not. It doesn't seem like you're very good. And then my good teams, I got the Chiefs, Ravens, Jaguars, Eagles, Lions, 49ers, who are flirting on that good and okay line, the Bengals, and then I also have the Cowboys. And then my playoff picture is essentially between the good and the okay teams, I do not think the Browns are going to make the playoffs. However, they seem like kind of that team that is just going to hang around. And then I think at the end of the year, they'll lose like 3 in a row. And then it's like, yeah, well, we expected it. But my playoff teams, I would expect to be, obviously the Chiefs, Ravens, Jaguars, Eagles, Lions, 49ers, Bengals, Cowboys. I'm going to have to go with out of that AFC division. Golly. I'm going to have to go with the Bills over the Dolphins with that.
Yeah, that's where I went.
Yeah, I think the Seahawks are going to sneak in there. And then out of that NFC division over there that sucks, godly. I'm looking. It's between the Saints and the Buccaneers, and I don't want to pick either of them.
Yeah,
I feel like it's tough to pick between the two bad teams. I'm gonna just say F it. I'm gonna go with the Buccaneers. I don't know. They seem scarier to me than the Saints.
Scary.
Yeah,
scarier with Baker Mayfield under center.
Yeah,
the villain.
Yeah, it's so bad, so bad. Like it's gonna be like a 7-10 team make the playoffs or whatever.
Oh my God, yeah,
and win a division.
Right, exactly. God, atrocious. The Analyst.
All right, so mine was just a regular post week 9 power rankings, basically. In my honorable mentions, like I've been doing, I have the Seahawks, the Browns, the Texans, and I had the Jets in here, but after watching them on Monday night, I'm going to take that out. And then at number 10, I have the Bills. I've keep this short and sweet. I think the Bills are starting to linger on that they're an okay team to bad team. They look good in instances and they don't look good in others. At the beginning of the season, I think they scared a lot of people, and they're kind of showing that they're mediocre now, and I'm kind of shocked by that. At number 9, I have the Jags. Jags are a good football team, but I want to see them play some good teams before I can really start moving them up my rankings. They have a good matchup with the 49ers coming up. Number 8, I have the Lions. I still really like the Lions. I think that the Lions are a good football team. The Baltimore Ravens beat the hell out of them, but other than that, the Lions are good, and they will make the playoffs. If you go look at their schedule, they play nobody. So
Yeah. Yep.
That's a team, if I'm being completely honest, that I think Dallas could absolutely rock in the playoffs.
I agree.
They are a type of team that Dallas would absolutely thrive on. It's kind of like the Niners and the Dallas Cowboys. Like the Niners are our kryptonite. I think if we played the Lions, we would be their kryptonite completely. I don't think they could be able to keep up with us. All right, number 7, I have the Bengals. They are at number 7 just because of their record, but honestly, I feel like they're a better team than number 7. They're top tier. Burrow's playing lights out. Their defense is back on track. T. Higgins just came out of his hole, and he's starting to show that he's, a good wide receiver 2, could be a wide receiver 1 elsewhere. At number 6, I have the Dolphins. This is kind of high up on the list. Now that I'm kind of thinking about it, I'm going to put the Bengals at 6 and the Dolphins at 7. The Dolphins are kind of they're candy ass to me. I've said that before.
Candy ass.
Candy ass meaning that they're all high and shine. They're the type of team that you play in high school where the other guys have all this cool shit, cool face mask, whatever, and you beat them by 45. So, yeah, I have the Dolphins at 7 and the Bengals at 6. Moving on to number 5. I still have the Niners at number 5 right now. I know they've lost 3 straight, but you can't really count them out. And I think they'll probably make a good turnaround here in the second half of the season. And then, believe it or not, I have at number 4 the Dallas Cowboys. I think that game against the Eagles showed a lot for Dallas. I think, like I said earlier, I think it took away the shadow of the Niners' loss, and I think it shows that Dallas is like seeing what people are saying. They're like, all right, okay, yeah, we'll step up and we'll play. They have a gauntlet of games later in the season. They should win these next 4, and I would very much venture out to say that the Eagles and Cowboys game in Week 14, right?
Yep.
Week 14.
AT&T.
They will be going into that game with the same record as the Eagles, and that game is going to be very meaningful.
Yeah.
Very meaningful. Number 3, I have the Chiefs. Their defense, I've said it last time I was on this podcast, their defense could be top 5. I mean, their defense is very strong. And they used to be, the heart and soul of that was Kelsey Hill and Mahomes. Mahomes is still there and Kelsey is too, but their defense is winning them football games. At number 2, I have the Eagles. Eagles beat us on Sunday, and they're 8-1, and they look good. But I still think that there's kinks in that armor that somebody's going to figure out. But they're winning games, and they're figuring out how to win games, and they're just a solid football team. And then at number 1, I think these are the 2 that people could argue back and forth about. But the Ravens. The Ravens at number 1, they have beaten up opponents that everybody's been talking up. They're just a well-rounded football team. Lamar's playing crazy. And I do think that at the end of the season, I still think that when they play like the Chiefs or the Bengals or somebody like that, that they'll probably lose like the first 1 or 2 games. And like they'll probably lose in the divisional or something until proven otherwise. But right now they're playing top tier football. So that's my Week 9 tier rankings as of Week 9. So I would say everybody in this top 10 for me is more than likely going to make the playoffs. The ones that I would say on their edge of their seats are the Dolphins and the Bills. So,
and then the same division too. So that's
one of them has to win the division.
Well, that's what I'm saying is if one of them doesn't win the division, I would say that they're most likely out because there's a lot of other divisions in the AFC that have some contenders, but it's a close race. So
yeah, I think it'll be the Bills because they already beat the Miami Dolphins once. But here's kind of my like interchangeable top 10 that I've been keeping up with since Week 4 or so. But this is from last week, little adjustments. Ravens move up a spot to number 1. Eagles move down a slot to 2. Chiefs at 3. Bengals shoot up 5 slots to number 4, entering the top 5, swapping spots with the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Dallas Cowboys, they're not going to surpass the 49ers or number 6 until they beat a good team. So I'm keeping my word on that. But they moved down just this tiny little slot behind the 49ers because of the Bengals' presence. The Detroit Lions have been in the same spot for 3 weeks for me. They have not moved. And then Buffalo, Miami, just similar to Ryan's list, right there at 9 and 10. Miami drops down 5 slots, basically swapping places with the Cincinnati Bengals. And then in the hunt, I've got the Cleveland Browns and the Seattle Seahawks. So, and then one other thing that I wanted to go over is kind of a miniature playoff look. So, and I'll show my screen because it'd be so much easier to do this way. And just kind of a real quick, my thoughts. So current standings right now, you got the Chiefs at 7-2, along with the Ravens. Jaguars are 1 less win with 6-2. You got the Bills, Bengals, Dolphins, and Browns, kind of all with similar records. You kind of caught my reasonings in there, but these are the seeds 1 through 7 that I think are going to be in the AFC. Chiefs at number 1, getting that first round bye. I think the Browns sneak in at the 7th slot. The Dolphins, will be in a wild card team as well as the Bengals. And we'll get to what happens to the Bengals later in just a sec. And then, of course, with the NFC, you've got the Eagles getting the number 1 slot, unless the Dallas Cowboys just somehow dominate in the gauntlet and beat the Eagles at home in week 14. There's a chance. We have not had a repeat NFC winner in a long time, if I'm not mistaken. But I've got the Cowboys being a number 5 seed right outside of the division winners, probably playing the Saints in the first round of the playoffs, which should be an absolute dub for the Cowboys in the divisional. But the Lions, like Ryan said, very easy schedule. The 49ers, those 3 losses, I don't think they'll catch up to the Lions record-wise. So they'll be third seed, but they'll obviously win the division, and the Seahawks will get into the playoffs. But this 7th seed for the NFC, bro, I have no idea. I put the Falcons in there because they have a weak schedule and division, and it'll be the worst playoff team by far. I was just looking at all the teams. I'm like, I don't think the Rams make it. I don't think the Commanders make it. I don't believe in the Buccaneers that much. It's a toss-up for 6 and 7 in the NFC. And then here are your AFC and NFC matchups, which I think is pretty interesting. You got Ravens versus Browns, Jaguars versus Dolphins, Bills and Bengals. Moving on to the AFC divisional round, I think the Bengals win and face the Chiefs, and then the Ravens and Jaguars play one another, leading to a Bengals versus Ravens AFC Championship round and a Ravens Super Bowl appearance. And then moving on down to the NFC Championship, I've got obviously the Eagles with the bye, Lions versus Falcons, 49ers versus the Seahawks again in the first round, and the Saints versus the Cowboys. And then in the divisional, you got the Eagles and Cowboys, which is a big game. This is kind of the one we wanted last year, and the Lions versus the 49ers. And I think that the Cowboys actually defeat the Eagles whichever way you play it, number 1 seed or number 5. I think the Cowboys win this game and they break the curse with the NFC Championship appearance, but a loss to our kryptonite against the 49ers, which will be absolutely brutal. So you get another Ravens 49ers Super Bowl where the Baltimore Ravens come out on top.
Yeah. So I'm looking up, I was just looking at the playoff picture if the season ended right now and just going over a lot of the teams. I mean, a lot of them are the same, but looking at this, I'm going to list some of these teams and you're going to be like, what? So on the AFC, it's kind of basically 6 out of 7 teams we expected. So we got the 1 seed at Kansas City, the 2 seed at Baltimore, the 3 seed, the 4 seed Miami, the 5th seed would be Pittsburgh, the 6th seed would be Cleveland, and 7th would be Cincy. So can any of y'all figure out a team that's not in there that you imagined would be in there?
Miami?
No, Miami's in there. The other team in their division.
Bills?
Yeah. If season ended right now, they would not be in the playoffs.
That's crazy to think about.
Crazy. And then on the NFC, which it's really just going to be 1 team, but you have Philly, number 1, Detroit, number 2 seed. San Francisco, number 3 seed. New Orleans, number 4 seed.
Yeah.
Seattle, number
Division
5.
one.
Yeah. Dallas, number 6. And then as of this moment, Minnesota Vikings would be the 7th seed.
Yeah, that's
If you
crazy.
can imagine that.
I don't think they last, but
No.
yeah.
So I don't think they last, but in that scenario, the Minnesota Vikings would be in before the Commanders, the Falcons, Buccaneers, Green Bay, and then the Rams, who are all teams we could
Honestly,
imagine in there.
hot take here. Well, maybe not hot, but the Minnesota Vikings, I would want in the playoffs over all of those other teams you just mentioned.
Absolutely.
Even though Josh Dobbs is just, he's not going to win a playoff game most likely. But, I mean, that team is, you're going to have Justin Jefferson in a playoff game again. So, I mean, I would much rather have that than some booty-ass other team with a shit quarterback.
Yeah. I mean, I would rather see about 30 other teams besides the New Orleans Saints in the playoffs. So
yeah, they're going to be the number 4. They're going to probably win their division, and they'll be that number 4th seed and host a playoff game.
Yeah,
it's bullshit. Like, we're going to have to play. If the Cowboys don't win the division, we're going to have to play probably, if we get that 5th seed, which, you know, we're going to have to play them in the New Orleans Dome. And then we have to go to Lincoln Financial. Then we're going to have to go to San Francisco. Like, you know, if it plays out my way. And that's a brutal slate. And it would say a lot about the team if we actually made the championship like my predictions. But, you know,
if it ended today, imagine this shit game for a playoff game right now. Say if everything went wrong,
nobody would be watching it.
And we were the 6th seed, and Seattle was the 5th seed. New Orleans and Seattle would play a playoff game. Yeah, it's like, who the hell wants to watch that game? Like, that sounds terrible. So,
Uncle Chad. Yeah.
It's funny that you say Seahawks and Saints, because the year that the Seahawks, they made the playoffs with a losing record, it was against the Saints.
Yeah.
And they won the game because that was when Marshawn Lynch broke off that run.
Oh, yeah.
That's right. Yeah, and the crotch grab.
Yeah.
That's my favorite part. I mean, yeah, the run was really good. That was a good run.
Oh, my gosh. All right. Well, that wraps it up. Let's go to our track records of the week. You know, I've got Cody Johnson's album, Leather. Dirt Cheap, Leather, and Double Down are some great songs out of his brand new album. We got the ultimate country album for hunting season. But, yeah, your records of the week, you know, outstanding stats, music, picks, etc. Like the little slogan on the bottom says, from inspiring tunes to compelling statistics, it's worth putting on the record. But what do you guys got for your records of the week? The kid.
My verse of the week is going to be plain and simple. It's a Billy Currington line. God is great, beer is good, and people are crazy. Billy Currington, people are crazy. Plain and simple. There's no puzzle to be solved in this. You know, God is great. Beer's good. I drink beer, you know, after work.
Every day.
On Friday and Saturday, not every day. Friday and Saturday, I'll go have a beer after work, after my corporate America job. And then people are crazy. You know, there's a lot of shit going on in the world. And just, you know, you guys all know some crazy people. So that's my verse of the week. It's pretty simple. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for allowing me to share that. Thank you, guys.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
All right. So my record of the week, and it was something Jared kind of mentioned a little bit in his record, but hunting season, specifically gun season, started November 4th. Probably one of my favorite times of the year. I love being out at the lease. I love, you know, hunting. I love the whole, you know, encapsulating feeling around, you know, just being out there, whether it's with your boys, whether it's with your significant other, your family, whatever, just kind of being out there in nature and just enjoying the time. I know a lot, like you talk about corporate America or any other job. I mean, all our lives are fast-paced and all over the place. And then it seems like you go out there during hunting season and just kind of relax. So that is my record of the week. I don't know what's so damn funny, Hunter, but that's my record of the week.
I just corporate America, bro. It's just it's a funny phrase to me.
You gonna be in the woods this weekend?
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
taking Friday off, and
Same.
so all weekend I'm gonna try to get me an old toad out there neck of
Yeah,
this
trying to
cabin.
get me a little basket rat.
Yeah,
Hopefully
but
nobody has an
I'm-
injury. Shit.
I will say there's nothing
my
better
sports are
than
over, Hunter.
I'm sorry for my whoever's hearing this, because they don't know, but there's nothing better than making a cup of coffee in the morning at 6 o'clock in the morning, getting in the deer stand, and then throwing in a Zen pouch after you drink your little coffee and just
Oh,
sitting
yeah.
there. There's nothing better with a little bit of coffee and nicotine in the deer stand. So
Yeah, a little Monica
shout out hunting
Lewinsky.
season. A little Tucker Carlson. You know what I mean?
Yeah, a little Wayne Zinski,
Yeah.
just throwing it in there in the morning, Yeah,
Little 2 or 3 of them.
Yeah.
All right. Well, this was track 21, the peak.
21.
You can 21. Can you do something? No. But follow the socials. Instagram track.pod. You can find our memes and content on there primarily. X.com at the track pod. We got the kid running the Twitter over there. We got TikTok at track.pod as well, or track.unscripted. And then our link tree. And again, I've been stressing this for 3 weeks. This is the key to finding us everywhere. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, AM, FM radio, you name it. At the Do-Si-Do off 1488 in Montgomery. Dude, we're everywhere. Go to every single one of our bios and every single one of our social media. There's a link tree link, and you can find us anywhere you would like. If you don't know us, you can find us there. So, track 21, the peak. We are the Rook and the Kid.